Hey everybody, so this is the third part of our video. It may be the last, but I went ahead and separated them. Number one, it's easier on YouTube for you to watch. So if I want to watch how to find data, hence use a subset, then I shouldn't have to set through the make data, okay? But now we're going to talk about something a little bit different. So we're going to talk about copying data or cloning data. So I'm going to go ahead and just show these tables are empty. These are the same tables we were working for. So let's go over here to our Datamaker. We're going to go ahead and connect back to our stage and our source, same as the other videos. And give it a second to connect. And we're going to use the same project as before. So all this is one continuous suite. I did have a request about talking about the connections, so I may do that in a later video as well. But here we have our Datamaker. Okay, we have our find data, and we have our make claims. We're going to make one more. And we're going to say new data pool. And in this case, we'll call it clone data. Okay. And I'm going to make it a subset. And save. And yes, create. Now, here in cloning data, we're going to use the same subset as we did before. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say edit data. And this time we're going to clone the data instead of subsetting the data. And I'm going to use this find claims. And I'm going to create the rules like before. Now we're going to do existing. Okay, give it a second. And here, again, we have the same rules. If you don't know this, I talked about it on the subsetting. But these are the rules that we can choose. We're going to stick with the default. And give it a second because it's going to open up that one view window, which is really cool. So it's opening up this window. Okay, and it should recognize the variable. It did, 38016, and it's filling in all this data. Now, for cloning the data, there's a little trick. We can't have our IDs match because if we do, then we're going to have dupes in the database, and the database is going to say, no, you can't do that. Okay, so we're going to say no to that. And I'm okay with my service ID because I don't think it's a requirement. I know this claims ID is. Okay. Now there's a shortcut to this. I can pick over here on the left or on the right. I'll show you in a few seconds. I can say show me all the primary keys. But also, like I said earlier, see how this red? That's telling me that's a primary key. But if I had a huge column, I could say, or a huge set, I could say show me all key columns. Okay. But in this case, I kind of can visually see it. So I'm okay with that. Now there's a couple of things I want to do too, because we're coming from production. I'm not going to do it too much, but we'd also want to go through here and kind of clean this up because we're duplicating what that user is using in production. Okay. For an example, we definitely want to get rid of the social security number. And I think some of this I talked about in the subsetting video. If not, I know I have before. But if I go in here, sorry, and I go to control, I think it's either control or code. No, it's code. Okay, here we go. And I want just a US zip code. Okay, and again, if you're not in the US, you can just program this out, 3 digits, a dash, whatever it is. Okay, so we're going to make that as our social security number. And the other things I can do too, like the date of birth, we're going to go ahead and just copy the date of birth from there. The doctor's name we'll keep from the database. The adjuster we'll keep from the database. That's okay. I think, okay, so let's just do that. Let's say I need copies of this person from production, okay? So we're going to go ahead and just pull this up, give it a few seconds to get to that window that you recognize. Oh, sorry, what if I close it? Then you'll get to the window that you recognize. Just make sure you save it, which I did. Now, you can also make the same adjustments over here. So for an example, there's our next. If I don't want to use the name from the database, I can change it. I think I showed some of this in the subsetting video. Sorry, I had a little break between the two. But let's just say I want the adjuster to always be Tim Higgins, okay? So, but I want all the other data to be from production. So I was thinking, because that's claim, if that's claim, I've got to change it over here, and that's totally fine. So what I've done is kept all the data, so social security number and the adjuster name from the database, and that's pretty much our cloning, is we're keeping all the other information from production. Okay. Now you don't have to do this, of course. You'll have to know what your rules are. Your rules are going to be based upon, whatever your database requirements are. So in other words, if you have places where you can't have duplicates, then you got to pay attention to that. But now that I have all this, I can close. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. I could have just published from right there, but that's fine because we're going to go ahead and publish this into our database. So clone, publish data pool. I'm okay with that. And then we'll give it a few seconds. Again, yours will be faster because I have a small server here in AWS. I'm going to do 25. We're going to make 25 copies of this person with the ID of 2878. So if I go over here and look, the whole goal of this is, let's take this claim. Hey, you know what, it'd be faster if I just type it out. Okay, .dbo, oops, dbo.claim. And I think it's claim ID, right? Okay, where claims ID equals 2878. So I am taking, I may have to put quotes around that, but let's see. So I'm taking this person, and it's going to be the same in all the tables. I didn't want to put the join all that in there, but you get it, right? So it's going to be this person copied 25 times, minus the adjuster name, and of course the ID. So let's go back over here. We'll say 25. We're good. And let's go ahead and publish it to our target. Okay. And this is cloning data, or you'll hear some people say copying data. It's the same thing. I'm copying the data, or I'm cloning the data to my database. Now, the difference between this and subsetting is subsettings, I'm taking the whole blob of data that I've modeled, and I'm pushing it to the database. In this case, I'm taking the data that I modeled, but I'm making copies of it, okay? Or I'm cloning it into other places. So we'll give it a few to let it finish. And again, this is a whole series of videos. I may go back and do an introduction where I do talk about the connections. Maybe I had that request, but at least this is just an introduction to get you started. If you have any questions, you definitely can ask me afterwards. So here we go. And now let's go over here to our database. And now we're going to run these three. Okay, so see, it's the copy of the database minus social security number. Notice no social security number is generated. Date of birth is the same. That's same. If I go over here, now we have the adjuster name is Tim Higgins, but all this information is the same. And here, this information is the same besides the adjuster. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's fairly simple to understand. The complex part is going to be building your subset, okay? And making your subset work with your rules. Anyway, I hope this was helpful, and let me know if there's anything else you want to see for TDM. Thank you.